everyone, this is Tejas from GearDiary, and I'm here today to talk about Stadia. I was one of the people that pre-ordered Stadia Founders Edition, so I've had it for about 2 weeks, got it right before launch, and I have to say I've been pretty impressed. So I just wanted to give people an idea of what the experience is of using Stadia and sort of my thoughts as well, so I figured what better way than to do a quick video. I'll try and make it quick, but I want to make sure I cover everything, so it may be a little longer than I normally would like. So let's get right into it. So right here I have an LG TV hooked up to a Chromecast Ultra 4K. And quick note, in the very beginning when this first came out, and there was a lot of confusion, you had to use the Chromecast Ultra that came in the Stadia box with the controller, purely because it had newer firmware. Since then, if you have an existing Chromecast Ultra, you can just reboot the device or force an update, and the software update will enable Stadia support. So I have a Chromecast Ultra that's over a year old that I was able to update the software, and Stadia works perfectly on it. So you do not need to buy, as of today, to my knowledge, unless it changes again, you should not have to buy a specific new Chromecast Ultra just to play Stadia. Your existing one should work as long as you update the software. So getting into the controller, so this came with the Founders Edition. I went with the blue color just because, you know, why not? So quick walk around, standard controller, very similar in layout to an Xbox One controller. Has the X, Y, A, B buttons, again very similar. The 2 sticks and the directional pad, 4 triggers, USB-C charging. I love USB-C, so that's a huge bonus for me. And a headset jack, rather, on the bottom. There's a Stadia button down here, which I'll show you in a second. There's a screen capture button, dedicated screen capture button, Google Assistant button, and then 2 other buttons, sort of like select start. You know, if you remember the days of Nintendo and the old controllers, right? It's like the 2, different options that you usually get in games. So, in terms of how to use this, when you have a Chromecast Ultra set up with the new software, it looks exactly the same. It has this, wallpapers that are scrolling through, but it'll show you in the top right corner, and this will show on every Chromecast Ultra once it's updated now with the kind of the Stadia compatible code. It'll show this little kind of thing in the top right corner, which is Stadia controller and a kind of like a controller combination, right? So it's, in this case, it's X, left, BB. Now, when you use the Stadia controller with a Chromecast Ultra, it will stay paired to that unless you repair it somewhere else. So, just to demo you the experience, I'm going to repair it with this Chromecast Ultra. If I just turn this controller on just by pressing the Stadia button, it will connect instantly and I'll be up and running. But just to show you the experience, so if you were to move to a different Chromecast Ultra, you went to a friend's house, you just hold the button down, you'll get a vibration when it turns on, and another vibration if you keep it held down when it's ready to pair, and you'll see this is flashing, hopefully in the camera. Now, if I want to actually pair this to this, I just do X, left, BB, and you'll see immediately it connects, it recognizes this is a Chromecast Ultra, it kicks off the Stadia application on the Chromecast Ultra, and this is a solid white. So now I'm all ready to go. I have my account, I log in, we'll let this load. So this is sort of like the main home screen. This will show the last game you played with a very simple play button. If I just hit A, it'll go right into the game, and I'll show that in a second. And if you go down, you'll see games that are in your library. There is currently no way on this Chromecast Ultra interface, the TV interface, to actually browse and purchase games on the TV. You have to do that in the app, and I believe they've just enabled it on the website. So if you're in Chrome, you can also do it that way. But currently, you can't do that on the TV. If I hit the the Stadia button, you get kind of like your profile, so I can change my status here to whatever I want it to be. I have a connection setting which doesn't show anything until you're in a game, and then it'll actually show you whether your connection is stable or whatever it is. Controller, so it shows the controller pairing code. I have 1 controller connected. I can pair up to 4 controllers, so if I have multiplayer games, friends come over with their controllers, they can use that code and pair, and they'll be on the same Stadia server as me. Audio, just some audio settings, nothing so super exciting there. I can start a party, I can add friends, kind of very basic stuff. There's a lot of features missing in Stadia. I think it's well documented. But I think the fundamentals are great, right? And I think adding features is something that they can take their time with. It was more important, I think, that you get the foundation of the platform right before you start adding a lot of extra features. And I truly believe they will add those, right? So quick aside, I just want to spend time now talking about this. So in terms of experience, in terms of network latency bandwidth, I know a lot of people are concerned about that. I was concerned too. This Chromecast Ultra I have here is hooked up to my network using a physical Ethernet cable. All Chromecast Ultras come with a power adapter that also has a RJ45 or Ethernet jack for that purpose. And Google recommends it obviously just because it takes one less possibility of latency and bandwidth out of the picture, even if you were just streaming 4K. So this one, just to do an A/B test, this one I have hooked up directly to my network using an Ethernet cable. I have a Chromecast Ultra in my basement, in my home theater area, that is hooked up using just regular Wi-Fi, my regular, same exact router, but over Wi-Fi instead of Ethernet. And the experience has been completely different. So on this device, which is connected over Ethernet, I've had basically zero issues, right? 100% of the time, I get 4K, 60 frames per second, HDR quality, games, it's very fluid, there's no lag, no latency, no artifacts, no choppiness, nothing. It's absolutely, to me, the same as gaming on an Xbox One X or PS4 Pro. It really is. It's very impressive, right? And what that tells me is that Google, at least in my experience, when I've been playing, is doing their part, right? Because, it takes my network out of the equation, my Wi-Fi out of the equation, because I'm hardwired into my network, but then once I leave my network, it's performing perfectly. Now, when I go to the basement, which is different, and again, maybe this part of it's an older Chromecast Ultra, but it shouldn't matter, that's on Wi-Fi, I would say 80% of the time, it's perfectly fine. But there are glitches, sometimes there'll be a little bit of artifacting, or you'll get a little bit of stuttering, like some sort of lag, right? Not terrible, but you'll get it. 20% of the time, it's been almost unplayable, and that's been disappointing. But having sort of done this A/B test, what that tells me is that the issue is my network, right? Because both devices are connecting to Google. They're both on my network. The only difference is this one is connected via a physical connection, and that one is over Wi-Fi. I've done some troubleshooting and thinking about this. I've noticed that performance on the Wi-Fi one does degrade when other people are streaming. So if Netflix is being streamed around my house, Apple TVs, I have a bunch of Apple TVs in my house, my kids are watching stuff, my wife is watching something, lots of wireless devices. So it could just be that my wireless router is not prioritizing my Stadia traffic. And that's what's causing it. But I don't believe, at least in my case, the issue is Google, because again, this one, which is hardwired to my network, is just perfect. So let me actually launch a game. And you'll notice when this comes up, this is Destiny 2, which is 4K, 60 frames per second HDR. This TV, which is an LG TV, will show a little thing up here that shows HDR. So it does recognize this as an HDR signal. People will say you're not going to get the same quality as a Xbox One X or a PS4 Pro because you're not going to get compression and artifacts and stuff like that. And that's completely true. If you want pure true gaming, that's the highest quality, then definitely those consoles will always be better than this, right? Because at the end of the day, Google has to do things to get this stream across the internet. To me, it's no different than a Ultra HD Blu-ray versus a 4K UHD, whatever, streaming, right? I personally don't own a Ultra HD Blu-ray because to me, the trade-off and the convenience of being able to stream movies, shows from everywhere that look to me exceptional, right, in 4K HDR, is good enough, right? I know it's not the best, but I can live with it for not having to buy lots of discs and to buy a expensive Blu-ray player. And the same way I think is my approach for consoles. My last console, the one I own right now, is an Xbox One, which is not a 4K console. So the way I see it is rather than spend $300-400 more dollars on a 4K capable console, I'm going to be spending, once they start charging, because I'm during a 3-month trial period, I'll be paying $10 a month for hopefully the same experience. Maybe not 100%, right? Because obviously game library is different, and it's not going to be the best quality, but for me it's good enough, right? For $10 a month. So if I go into this, anybody who's played Destiny 2 on a console hopefully should notice, at least I noticed, and maybe because my Xbox One is a launch console and it's just old, but the load times on Stadia are extremely, extremely fast. Part of that is because the servers that you're on are using SSDs instead of hard drives, where consoles all use hard drives. Or most consoles, as far as I know, unless you modify them, use hard drives. So the load times are very fast. So I will show you just some quick gameplay so you can see how this actually goes. And again, this is not going to be easily seen on the video, but someone who's here, the picture quality is fantastic. It's very fast, very smooth. And you'll see in a second when I get into the game, the actual response time is very, very fast, right? And the same thing goes for actually playing with other players online. Like I've never felt that I've been at a disadvantage. One thing to keep in mind is when you're actually playing with other players online, like there's another player here, we're all on Stadia, right? So this is obviously just the Stadia platform. Everybody, because you're in a data center together, everybody between us, right? So me, this guy over here, and whoever else was over there, the latency between us is extremely small, to nothing to zero, right? It's negligible. So your experience from multiplayer should actually be better. The issue is, can you get a good connection between yourself and Google to Google? If you can get that, then the experience has the potential to be better than a console, right? Because the issue with consoles is that you have to basically find a set of people to play with that have good connections with you, right? If you don't have that, then as good of a connection as you may have with the server, other people may not, so they may lag out, or they may have a better connection, and so then in that case, you may be at a disadvantage. This puts everybody on the same playing field, right? So I'm not like a competitive player by any means, but if you are a competitive player, Stadia does have that advantage, right? Like everyone plays kind of on the same server, the same data center, so the lag, latency, response time is going to be identical between players. There shouldn't be any difference. I'm about to die. But as you can see, it's very responsive. At any point, during this time, I have never felt like, I wish I was on an Xbox or a PS4 because this is not working, or whatever. The force feedback on the controller is excellent. I would say it's just as good as my Xbox One. Google does a really good job with haptic feedback. Their haptic feedback on the Pixel phones, which I own, are I think some of the best outside of Apple. So I'm not surprised, but it is good that they did kind of focus on that and made sure the experience from that perspective was good. So there you go. So this is Destiny 2. I'm usually much better than this, by the way. I'm trying to talk and actually play at this thing is a lot harder than it looks, especially at this weird angle. So this is Stadia. So if I'm done now playing with this, if I do this, you can just see the same stuff. So I go to connection. Obviously, it says excellent. It's a data usage, best visual quality, 4K HDR, right? So this is a good way to check where you're at. Now, if I want to get out of here, I can just go out. I can do exit game. It'll take me back to the home screen. At this point, I can just launch on the game, go back into Destiny, or I can hold this down and do shut down Stadia. And I shut it down. This actually will go back to the home screen, and my controller will turn off. And at that point, you're good to go. So in summary, I would say I think this is an excellent product. I think Google did a fantastic job. There's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of features missing to come to parity with some of the other established consoles. But I think this has the most potential in the future because you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars every X amount of years for a piece of hardware that's going to be obsolete, right? The real future and promise of Stadia, and even xCloud and Sony, PlayStation Now, whatever, is that it will grow with you, right? So you pay a subscription service, and then a year from now, they'll have faster GPUs, faster CPUs, and that upgrade will happen unbeknownst to you, and you'll just experience better performance, better graphics. It is a really, really exciting product. I think my recommendation is, especially if you can find a way to get a hardwired connection to the Chromecast Ultra, then I would go buy one today. It is just an awesome experience. I haven't even talked about being able to play on your phone. I have a Pixel, I can do that, or any Chrome browser. So people are posting online, you can play on, pictures of this, but you can play on a MacBook, iMac, any Windows desktop or laptop, any Chrome OS device, right? It's a very, very liberating experience, right? You can game wherever, and you can take your game with you. And I think once you've experienced that, it's hard to go back to the days of a console sitting under a specific TV. But anyway, so I hope I covered most of it. If you have questions, definitely let me know. Again, this is Tejas with GearDiary. Thanks a lot.